Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. It's good to be back with you. Welcome to Nazareth Baptist Church Online. Thought I'd sit here at the piano tonight. I've got a song I want to share with you at the end of our lesson. But for tonight, we're going to jump right into our Bible study. It seems like every week I've had a different book that I've been reading that I've pulled information from, and this week is no different. So I'll go ahead and show you tonight's book. This one is The Life You've Always Wanted by John Ortberg. Admittedly, it's a terrible title. It sounds like some health and wealth prosperity gospel, something that would be on Oprah's top 10 list. But John Ortberg is an excellent Christian author. He's a pastor. And this one, it is The Life You've Always Wanted, right? The subtitle here is Spiritual Disciplines for Ordinary People. And I'm as ordinary as they come. And that is the life I've always wanted, is a life of spiritual disciplines, of prayer and fasting and Bible study and serving and stewardship. And I want to know more about those. And that's exactly what this book is. It's so good. So I would recommend that one to you highly. I'm going to turn to it in just a minute and pull from the chapter on endurance and perseverance. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about tonight. We're all experiencing a trial right now. And for you, that may be virus related, and that may be something totally unrelated. It may be above and beyond what is going on in our world with the coronavirus. You may say, look, virus is bad, but my job is suffering. My career is gone. My marriage is suffering. My marriage is failing. It may be something above and beyond what is going on with the coronavirus that's your trial. So when I say trial and suffering, and when we talk about trials and suffering tonight, apply that to your life in whatever way the Lord is leading you to apply it. But I know one thing at the very least, we are all affected by this stay-at-home order right now. Our lives have been turned upside down. Our work has been turned upside down. Church is different. Work is different. Family life is different right now. And you can wish and dream all you want to, but we are not soon returning to the world that we knew in January or even February of this year. I told my kids early on in this process that March 11th is going to be your September 11th for your generation. You're going to look back on March 11th, 2020, and I say March 11th, that was the first night of our revival. That was the first night that everything began to kind of become realized that NHL canceled their season, NBA canceled their season. We found out about several people that were becoming affected by the disease, and all of that kind of took place on March 11th. So I remember that because of our revival, and that's become kind of a marker for me. But we're all experiencing some degree of suffering and loss right now, whether that's great or small. In this book that Ortberg wrote, he says this: loss creates a barren present, as if one were sailing on a vast sea of nothingness. Those who suffer loss live suspended between a past for which they long and a future for which they hope. They want to return to the harbor of familiar past and recover what was lost, or they want to sail on and discover a meaningful future that promises to bring them life again. Instead, they find themselves living in the barren present that is empty of meaning. And I feel like that's where we're at right now, the barren present. Some long for the past and the way things used to be, and some of us long for a future where we can walk around without masks and dine in at restaurants, where we can play baseball and softball again, and the only thing we worry about catching is a pop fly. We long for a future where all of this is gone and we're back to normal, but this barren present is where we find ourselves right now, this trial. And I want to encourage you with a message from 1 Peter chapter 4 tonight, simply titled, Don't Waste This Trial. Don't waste this trial. This is where we're at. We're in the barren present. We're longing for the past, or we may be longing for the future. But instead, we feel like we're on this vast sea of nothingness, as Ortberg says, the barren present. But don't waste it. Don't waste it. Let's read together 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 12 and 13 is where I want to start. It says, Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you, But rejoice insofar as you share Christ's suffering, that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed. So, number one, don't waste this trial by failing to rejoice. Don't waste this trial by failing to rejoice. In Romans chapter 5, verse 3, it says this, we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not put us to shame. So Romans 5:3 tells us we rejoice in our sufferings. And this passage, 1 Peter 12, says, Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. Don't be surprised by trials, but rejoice. Rejoice. We rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that God is using trials in our life to mold us. Trials produce endurance and character and hope. Now, I know that's hard to do, but I want you to think about it for just a moment. Think about something good that has come in your life because of this trial, this quarantine, this social distancing, whatever you want to call it. Think about something that has been a blessing to you because of this trial. For me, it's our family time. That one's easy. We have been able to slow down and as a family have more meals together than we ever have. For somebody with teenagers, with a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old that are, now Titus is driving and, they're able to kind of get out on their own a little bit more and they begin to have their own life. They begin to have their own thing. And, it's easy to let that time slip away. And everybody is so busy, but this has taken away all distractions and it's caused us to have more time together. And I treasure that. It's a blessing. This trial has been a blessing in that. So think of one thing that you can think of that has been a blessing to you. Number two, don't waste this trial by growing complacent. Don't waste this trial by growing complacent. Let me read 1 Peter 4, chapter 4, verses 10 and 11. It says, and each has received a gift. Use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Whoever speaks as one who speaks oracles of God, whoever serves as one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. To him be glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Complacency among our church body concerns me. Complacency concerns me. Just because we're not meeting together in this building right now, that does not mean that God has pressed some cosmic pause button on our Christian life. It does not mean that he has called a timeout for Christians. No, you will waste this trial if you feel like your only Christian responsibility is to crawl out of bed in your pajamas and turn on Facebook so you can watch our services on Sunday morning. That is not your only Christian responsibility, and you will waste this time, you will waste this trial if you grow complacent in your Christian walk. So use the gifts that God has given you, like he says here in 1 Peter, to serve, to speak, to encourage, to sing, to pray. Whatever gifts God has given you, keep using those gifts in whatever way you can find to glorify God through your gifts. I've been so encouraged as I've seen stories on Facebook, on social media about people who can sew, that have been using their talents to sew masks for the medical community and for others. And the people that I've seen sharing songs, and people that I've never seen sing before, they've been sharing songs. And I'm like, I didn't even know that guy could play the guitar, but here's his family and they're all gathered around and they're singing a song for us. And people are using their gifts in different ways. Just because you can't be here and teach a Sunday school or sing in our choir, it doesn't mean that you have gotten a pass on using your gifts and your talents for the Lord. Find a way to use them. Fix food for your neighbor. Go shopping for somebody that's shut in. Use your time and your talents and your gifts wisely, and don't grow complacent. Dads, this is your time to shine. It's time for you to step up as a spiritual leader in your home, dads. I'm talking especially to you. The kids are home. Schedules have been wiped clean. The only thing on ESPN right now is the rerun of last year's ping pong national championship. I mean, there is no reason dads have to not step up and be the spiritual leader in their home. Make a plan, make time. It doesn't have to be a big thing. You don't have to learn the guitar and lead your family in worship. It could be something as simple as saying every afternoon after we eat supper, we're staying at the dinner table and I'm going to open the Bible and read from God's Word. We're just going to pray together. Ask your family to give you 5 minutes after supper. Take the time, pray with your children. And, I need to do better at this myself. I found myself last night, I realized that, after dinner, me and Mandy are sitting there watching maybe a show on Netflix, and Titus is in the dining room working on a little bit more homework, and Evie's upstairs in her room, and Matthew is playing, and we've all just kind of drifted and eaten at our own time, and it was kind of chaotic, and I didn't step up and say, all right, guys, hey, 5 minutes, we're going to do family worship tonight. I let the time slip away, and before I knew it, it was 9:30, and time just got away from us, and we're getting into our bedtime routine, and I missed it. I missed it. And dads, don't let this opportunity slip away. If you've not been doing that, man, this is the perfect time for you to step up as the spiritual leader in your home and say, all right, we're starting something new. We're starting something new. You will waste this trial if you grow complacent. Don't grow complacent. Number 3, you will waste this trial if you slip into sin. You will waste this trial by slipping into sin. 1 Peter 4, verses 1 and 2 says, since therefore Christ suffered in the flesh, arm yourselves with the same way of thinking, for whoever has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin, so as to live for the rest of the time in the flesh, no longer for human passions, but for the will of God. This one's not easy to talk about, but let me just be real with you. We are more susceptible to attacks from Satan. We're more susceptible to attacks from the enemy when we are hungry, when we are angry, when we are lonely, and when we're tired. It's an acronym, HALT, and HALT, HALT. You need to halt and take notice that Satan is going to attack you when you are hungry, when you're angry, when you're lonely, and when you're tired. 22 million Americans filed for unemployment in the last 4 weeks. Even more than that are out of work right now. They're at home, they're depressed, they're, concerned about the future. We're stressed about what's going on in our economy, in our world, and Satan is going to use that to his advantage. Drug abuse is at an all-time high. Alcohol sales are up 40% in the last 4 weeks. And Mandy and I read an article yesterday that there are several pornographic websites that are giving away free subscriptions during this coronavirus quarantine. And they're not doing that out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing that because they know that they can get you addicted. Satan is attacking while people are hungry, angry, lonely, tired. He is coming after your family. Don't waste this trial by slipping into sin. Don't get on the other side of this and realize that you're caught up in a new addiction, that you're caught up in more sin than you were before all this started. No, use this time to grow in God's Word. Use this time to grow in your spiritual life, and don't slip into sin and waste this trial. Number 4, don't waste this trial by sinking into solitude. Don't waste this trial by sinking into solitude. Chapter 4, verse 8. It says, above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly. 2 Corinthians 1:4 says, God comforts us in all our affliction, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. Did you get that? God comforts us so that we are able to comfort others with that comfort that God gives us. Love one another. Love one another. Part of growing in trials is comforting and investing in other people. Isolating ourselves in a bubble is one of the worst, it's one of the most damaging, dangerous things we can do in times of trial. But comforting other people is vital for 2 different reasons. It gets the focus off of ourselves and our pain and our problems and our troubles and our suffering. It gets that focus off of us and on other people when we love other people, when we comfort other people. And When we encourage other people, 2 Corinthians 1:4 says, we're comforted ourselves. When we comfort other people, God comforts us through that. You want a healthy way to get through this trial? Find somebody else who's hurting and comfort them. When we get through with this, in just a minute, pick up your phone and text somebody and just say, hey, I'm thinking about you and I love you. Comfort somebody else through this. Reach out to somebody else through this. Don't go through your whole day and not contact anybody, not speak to anybody, not share God's love with somebody else. You will waste this trial if you sink into solitude. You'll waste it. You'll waste it. There's a song my mom and dad used to sing when I was a kid called God Will Make This Trial a Blessing. The McCameys recorded it in 1989, but it was written by a man named Terry Tidwell in 1988. So I guess when I was a kid, it was actually a brand new song. But I've thought about it several times this week. Don't waste this trial. God will make this trial a blessing in your life. If you'll continue to rejoice, if you don't grow complacent, if you don't slip into sin during this time, and if you don't sink into solitude, if you continue to share God's love with other people, God will make this trial a blessing. I wish I could have got mom and dad to sing it, but I'm short on time and I didn't want to put them on the spot. So I do want to share the song with you tonight, though. So just want this to be a blessing to you. Just come into a valley, one like I've never seen before. I keep searching for a way out. Seems like padlocks are on the doors. Oh, there must be another sunrise, another sunset that I'll see. God will make this trial a blessing. That's the love He has for me. God will make this trial me to my knees, though my tears flow like a river, yet in Him there's sweet relief. There's no need to get discouraged, there's no need to talk defeat. God will make this trial a blessing, and the whole wide world will see. Oh, I was not the first one to come into this place. You see, every child of God, this is a test that you must face. It is here that God will mold you and make you what you ought to be. God will make this trial a blessing. Just be patient, you will see. God will make this trial a blessing. Sends me to my knees, though my tears flow like a river, yet in Him there's sweet relief. There's no need to get discouraged, there's no need to talk defeat. God will make this trial a blessing, and the whole wide world will see. Now I'm standing on a mountain, looking back, I can see when I was in that